Hey guys, Assalamu alaikum. I know that there's a lot of information about working abroad right now, but there are a few points I wanted to talk about today based on some of the things that I've seen happen with some of my colleagues in the past. So stick around and we'll get into it really quickly here. I've been working abroad in Saudi Arabia and in Malaysia for the better part of 12 years now. I worked for a brief time in Malaysia for just 1 year and about 11 years in Saudi Arabia. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today was that when you work, make sure that you do your best, obviously. But there's a new phenomenon that, like, once people find that they're not going to continue with the company, maybe let's say that they still have 5 months left on their contract, they decide to basically just completely shut down and not only not do the bare minimum, but basically do basically not just bare minimum, but like barely any kind of work, but not enough to get fired. So I wouldn't even call it a bare minimum. I think there should be a new category for it. But in general, I would say that this is probably, it's something, I guess, popular. Of course, people are doing quiet quitting or whatever. But if you want to continue to work elsewhere, especially in the field of education, people talk and your experience matters, and you want to, make a good impression, but also leave a good impression. You also want to leave on a good note. And although maybe the popular thing to do right now is to just, walk away from work and, basically, put your nose up to whoever was your manager or whatever. But I wouldn't recommend that at all. In fact, I would recommend that you finish your work with the same kind of effort and same kind of attempt to charm that you did when you were leaving, or when you started, excuse me. So when you leave, it should just be the same way that you were working, like at the very beginning of your job. You try your best. I mean, right or wrong, everybody tries probably their very best when they start a job because they want to make a good impression. They want to stick around for a year, maybe 2 years, maybe even more than that. So they put a lot of work into the first few months of their career. Some people fall into a slump afterwards, some people don't. But don't be the person who, upon 5 months out from leaving their job, or even like 2 months out from leaving their job when they're working abroad, that they just kind of shut down and don't basically do anything, that they don't really teach in the classroom, or they don't really perform their duties or tasks up to par. That's one step. If you're planning on staying here for quite some time, I would recommend that you find a job that has a perfect work-life balance. I've talked about this many times in my other videos, but there's also a big focus on making more and more income. And of course, you should have a target and a goal that you're trying to achieve, but at the same time, that shouldn't come at the expense of your family. Now, I mean, from a Muslim perspective, if you're a guy, yes, you're supposed to provide for your family and you're supposed to save up for your marriage, but like, if you're working, like well into your 30s and you still haven't been married yet, I think that there's a kind of an issue with you as opposed to an issue with anyone else. So yes, it's good to be ambitious, but at the same time, you have to have a balance in your life. You should be going to the gym, you should be studying, you should be working on Quran, you should be working and providing income, should be taking care of your family, but you can't just do one thing over the other. So of course, it is popular to work maybe more than one job. I don't, because it's not allowed in my contract, obviously. But it's something to consider. Also worth considering is that I've worked in management for about 7 years, and now I've been almost 5 years in teaching. And one thing that we look at from a manager's perspective is how long has a teacher stayed in a particular job? How long have they been at a particular site or with a particular employer? And if you bounce around like every few months, if you are only employed between 6 months and maybe up to a year is okay, but if you are changing your employer every 6 months, this shows us that there is a problem with the teacher. Either the teacher is a backpacker, and in which case, if they are a backpacker and it's a short-term contract, then no problem, especially if that teacher is straightforward about saying that. If the teacher is very upfront about the fact that, I don't plan on being here long term, I just would like a 3-month or 6-month stint, cool if that's upfront. But if the normal contract is a year-long contract or two years, and your employment history, as people check, is like 6 months here, 5 months there, 3 months here, and your excuse is that you want to do better, it's not going to be believed. It's going to either come across as you're incompetent or you don't understand how work is. But basically, there's no reason for a company to want to invest in you. As much as you would like to do better, you have to understand that you're also selling your own skills, your skill set, and your ability to perform and to help students. And if you can't stay consistent at anything, that's what the history basically says. If your history is bouncing around from one place to another, that's telling us as recruiters or management that you are not consistent. You're not able to consistently have employment for whatever reason that is. So we could lie to ourselves and say that, it's because I'm trying to do better, but is it really? And if it's not, then what's the problem? We might have to work on those and fix those issues ourselves. So if you work here, usually here being Saudi Arabia, you'll get a 1 to 2 year contract. I suggest finishing it, doing the full contract. At least, I would say, from a professional standpoint, at least 2 years in a company is good before you start considering moving on to another company. But and maybe more than 5 to 6 years is a little bit complacent. Maybe you're a little bit too comfortable, or maybe you really, really enjoy that company. If you're a career man and that's your company, then no problem. So these are things to consider when surviving abroad. Having a good work-life balance, finishing strong, starting strong, and not really bouncing around from place to place. If you implement what I've just been mentioning here, that you work hard on a daily basis and that you finish strong, that's going to look great and you're going to have great reviews from your previous employer. If you are consistent with your workplace, again, that's going to reflect positively on you. It shows that you're consistent. You can come in for a contract and finish your contract. Even for what we call mercenary teachers, those people who really, they're just in it only exclusively for the money. They want to get in, make their money, and get out of the country. Even for them, they understand those things. They know that reputation is very important, and they want to be sure and quite clear to the employer that they can carry out their tasks, that they can deliver what they've been asked, and that they will be successful in doing so. And that's important for employers, especially. Not every employer wants to have teachers around for a long time. So that's something else important to consider. In terms of working here now, there is still the traditional method of getting a residency permit or Iqama residency card. That is still the go-to in the normal route for employment. That will ensure that you have regular insurance, that you'll have the ability to open a bank account, and that you'll have the ability to do quite a few other things that are just seen as normal here. If you decide to come as a visitor and then, or to come on a business visa, working as a visitor, it's not permitted. Working under a business visa is. So there has been talk that basically working or switching your visa is possible. I haven't looked into it, but the Ministry of Labor online, if you go to Saudi Arabia Ministry of Labor, then you'll find that information that you're looking for. A lot of this stuff you don't really need a consultant for. You can look it up online. I know people do ask a lot of questions about that. When it comes to English teaching in particular, specifically, it is still the case that most employers, almost all employers, do want to have native speakers from one of 6 countries: Ireland, the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And there are some exceptions now. There are actually many exceptions for South Africa too. South Africa does have a lot of highly qualified teachers, and they are here and they're doing their job very well. So that's also something to consider when working here. I get a lot of comments from different folks, basically, asking, I'm from such and such a country, will I be able to get a visa? I've got, really, to be honest with you, no idea. I know that a lot of the people I work with, they typically are from one of the countries I just mentioned. If they're not, then they're probably working for an international school. And that international school is from their own home country. So you'll find that for a Gambian person, they'll be working, a Gambian teacher, they'll be working at the Gambian International School. For a Pakistani teacher, they'll be working at the Pakistani International School, and so on and so forth. In terms of life here, I mean, updates in 2024, there's not really a lot to update. I mean, Riyadh is still under construction. It's still a booming place. There's still a lot going on. They invested a lot in different kinds of entertainment, some of which is like fascinating, like the Boulevard World. It kind of reminds me of like Dubai World. I haven't been to the Boulevard World. I was in Dubai World, but what I've seen from vlogs, it looks similar. The streets are clean, you know, everything, life goes on. I think the only complaints most people have when you ask them about working and living here is the traffic. That's the big one, the traffic, and complaining about the commute. And also something to consider, guys, I guess maybe the one big change of 2024 is that the housing has really, really skyrocketed. The cost of housing has gone up in a major way. It used to be able that you could rent a place for, let's say, 14,000 riyals per year, an unfurnished apartment, which is basically, here it's kind of just like a shell with no air conditioning. It does have lights, it has electricity, but you have to basically furnish everything yourself. Some come with a kitchen sink, some don't even have kitchen sinks. That used to be 14,000. Nowadays, the range on apartments has gone from like 16 all the way up to like 40,000. 40,000 for like a tiny, small, not really that great apartment. So that's something to consider when you're trying to find employment here. Will your employer cover the cost of housing? And you have to have some kind of numbers. So what I'm telling you is, if you're based in Riyadh, in this capital city, 14,000 a year is not going to get you like anything pretty much anywhere. You're going to need a lot more than that. So it's important that if you do choose to work here, either your employer has company housing, which many of them do, or that they have a very generous housing allowance. If they don't have that, you might want to consider finding another employer. Anyways, y'all, those are some of the responses I have to many comments that have come through, and I get a lot of private messages. I'm sorry, look, you know, I can't answer most of them, and I don't want to pretend to know. Consultancy is like a paid profession, and if I wanted to go into that, I would. And it would, I mean, it's something that's like, it's not free, and it's not free for a reason, because there are risks involved in giving people the wrong information, right? There are risks involved in giving people the wrong information, and I don't want to give any of you guys the wrong info. So those are my 2 cents. Again, remember guys, work hard, do your best. Inshallah, we'll see you guys all here soon. I know there are plenty of opportunities to visit now because of the visa restrictions that have been lifted. There are a lot of people that can just come as visitors, especially from English-speaking countries. Please do come and check this place out, and maybe consider it to be your new temporary home. Anyways, y'all, assalamu alaikum, bye-bye.